Hello and welcome back to Read, Rant, and Review. I'm here with Emo Pony to talk to you about a book called The Goose Girl. This is breaking with my theme of reading books for boys by being a book that stars a female character and is probably slightly more enjoyable to girls, mostly because it's kind of got a fairy tale side, and we ladies tend to enjoy the fairy tale stuff into much older ages than boys do. Not to say that a boy could not enjoy this book, I think they could. This book is also gone back to the library accidentally. Didn't mean to send it back, but it got into my pile of stuff that needed to go back to the library. So Mr. Laptop is going to help me with reading the back. Anidori Caladra, Taliana Isili, Crown Princess of Kildenry, that's a tough first sentence, spends the first years of her life under her aunt's guidance learning to communicate with animals. As she grows up, Ani develops the skills of animal speech, but is never comfortable speaking with people. So when her silver-tongued lady-in-waiting leads a mutiny during Ani's journey to be married in a foreign land, Ani is helpless and cannot persuade anyone to assist her. Becoming a goose girl for the king, Ani eventually uses her own special, nearly magical powers to find her way to her true destiny. I would call this a charming fantasy with surprisingly dark elements at times. It is based on an old fairy tale called The Goose Girl and is kind of fleshed out a lot more. And I kind of, like that. I like that every now and then. As a fairy tale, it is overall predictable. You know the arc, you know the feeling. It's like putting on a warm blanket. But at the same time, there are smaller elements that surprise you. So it's like putting on a warm blanket and occasionally finding a small hedgehog inside. Not unpleasant because they're adorable, but also a little bit prickly. The small things really do help to keep the story fresh, though. The main character of Ani is intriguing and pretty well developed. To me, it is a well fleshed out main character. If I can put them in a situation in my head and know how they will react. They have to have at least a few personality traits for me to go off of. Like, if you put Bella in a situation and you think, how would she react? You almost go, well, she would react however I would react, because Bella is such a blank slate that is meant to be used by the reader. But I prefer a character who I can put into a situation and you would go, oh, I know how she'd react. She'd react like this. And I feel like this character is just on my side of that line. She doesn't have a huge personality, but there's enough that you can predict how she will react to certain situations. The magic system in this book is pretty cool. As it mentions on the back, she is an animal talker, and there are 3 types of talkers. People talkers, animal talkers, and then like nature talkers, and the nature ones are super rare. And of course, guess what our main character learns to do later? But it starts out that she can talk to animals, and I like the way that she does, because it's not just like some weird psychic connection with all animals. She actually has to like learn their language, and body language comes into it, and eventually she does kind of get a psychic link with a horse, because she learned its name when it was born, and so if you know an animal's true name, you can communicate with it. That's cool. I liked that. It added a little bit. It's one of the hedgehogs in the blanket. Overall, everything in this story felt pretty plausible within this story, although there were a few moments where I got very frustrated with the main character. She is, as a goose girl, in this foreign land, and everyone there has dark hair, probably maybe a little bit darker complexion, I like to imagine, and she has bright blonde hair, and so she would be easily identifiable as not from their land. So she keeps it covered at all times. And handily, in this land, women having covered heads is normal, so I guess cool, lucky there. But there were a few times where, because this revealing her hair would get her killed. It is extremely dangerous for her to reveal who she is through most of the book. And there are a few times where she takes her hair out of its covering when she is not certain that she is safe. And she does this several times, and I just wanted to smack her and be like, bitch, you're an idiot! Put the hair away! What are you doing? Never, never take it out unless you were in your little house with all the windows shuttered and the door locked. Do you want to die? 'Cause you will die. And I would also, she has really long hair, and if I was her, I would have cut it super short. So there's less chance that it's going to get caught on shit if she has it down, or it's not going to fly out of her, you know, headdress or whatever. Just chop it all off. Just seems efficient. I liked the overall theme of the story of a girl becoming a woman and a woman becoming a leader. It had a pretty good progression, I felt, and it wasn't the typical sort of empowering story about how she learns to pick up a sword and kick everyone's ass. Rather, she learns how to communicate with people and how to empathize with the people around her. And that's what makes a leader, is that she really understands the people. I will say of this book that it has some rather jarring tonal shifts between a seemingly sort of not light but not really dark either fairy tale type story, and then it swings abruptly into some extremely dark territory, and if you are not prepared for that, it's kind of jarring, and there are some scenes of gore and some implied rape and sudden violence, a very disturbing thing with a horse. So I warn you now that if you read this, and I do think you should, that there's some stuff that'll make you go, whoa, that was, whoa, ooh, wow, that's got dark really fast. The writing is also kind of jarring in that same way. It flows along with a smooth grace, and then suddenly it's like the author forgot how to even and just starts writing like a 12-year-old for a little bit and then goes back. I don't understand why. It confused me greatly. I'd really be into the flow, and then all of a sudden, crappy writing for a very short amount of time, and go away again. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. Was she writing when she didn't have her coffee that moment? I don't know. There are lots of characters in this story, but not many of them get fleshed out. I wish that it had been more of an ensemble. I love ensemble stories because they give you so many different characters that you can like. If you don't love the main character, well, here's another character that you can love. And I know ensemble stories are hard to write because you have to have a good handle on so many characters, but this would have been really great if it was, because as the Goose Girl, she eats with all of the other lower servants, all of the animal handlers, and she makes friends with all of them, but they are really very copy-paste. Like, I didn't know who was who. They all had names, but I had no idea who was who at the end, and I couldn't tell you anything about their personalities, other than, like, he takes care of the horses, and he sweeps out the stable, or something. You know, I wish that the characters had been more fleshed out, so we would have a better understanding of them. It would have been a lot more fun. The characters that do get development are fairly deep, and you do care about them. I think they do a good job of making you care about them. I guess I wouldn't call them all that deep, but they're more fleshed out, and you do care if they live or die, which is always a plus. I don't have too much to say about this book. It almost kind of fell into my meh category of books that I read, enjoyed, and then carried on with without feeling the need to review them. But after I was done, I was like, you know, it's the sort of book that I like and I don't see very often, and what if there were other people like me who are looking for this kind of book? Because so often with these fairy tale books, you don't get really into the main character's head, and you don't get that. It's usually more about the story overall than what the main character and the other characters are thinking and feeling. Because with a fairy tale like this that's translated from a previous, you know, real fairy tale, I think authors feel like they have to hit all those points, and they just go from point to point, and they don't think about what the character is thinking and feeling because they can't let the story develop as naturally that way. And so if you're like me and you love, you know, reimagined fairy tales, and you want to get back into that just fantasy world with swords and sorcery and talking animals and all that jazz, but you want something with a little bit more depth, this book will be a breath of fresh air. It's not going to change your life, but it will be an enjoyable read if you are like me and you really do like some of that fantasy stuff still. So overall, yes, check out The Goose Girl. I didn't have anything goose related, so emo pony, because there's horses in the book. Say hi, emo pony. Okay, say bye, emo pony.